Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Community Scrutiny Group. It's like waiting for a bus, isn't it? After all that time, we have two in the space of a couple of months. Hopefully everyone is delighted to be here with us tonight. I do appreciate it. It's also during the usual holiday period, so thank you again to everyone for being with us and raring to go. Also, welcome to everyone who's watched us on the YouTube channel. Again, much better than Coronation Street standards, so really hope you enjoy it. So tonight we've got 6 items to go across in total. First of all, we're going to hear apologies for absence. I'll speak to Laura if you've got any apologies for absence.
No apologies.
Thank you. So with no apologies, I can go around and do the roll call in terms of who's here for people who are perhaps watching this online for the first time. So my name's Jonathan Whelan. I'm the chairman of the Community Scrutiny Group. We've got Councillor Val Bansal, who's the vice chairman of the group. We've got Councillor Leo Healy, who's online. We've got Councillor David Sims, Councillor Gareth Williams, Councillor Rod Jones, Councillor Rex Walker, Councillor Richard Mander, Councillor Gary Dickman will be hopefully joining us shortly, just having some IT issues at the moment. And we've got our officer team with us tonight. It's got Darryl Birch, who's service manager for the neighbourhood and is the lead officer with us tonight as Dave Banks is away. So welcome, Darryl, and thank you for stepping into the breach tonight. We also have Sam Mayer, who's here from the East Midlands Council here to give us some support and talk about the equality side. So very thanks, appreciate you joining us, Sam. And of course, we've also got Derek Hayden with us from the communities team. So congratulations, Derek, on your position as well, and welcome to us tonight. And we've got our team who are supporting us. So we've got Laura Webb from Democratic Services, and I think Helen's also around somewhere as well, but hiding. So thank you and welcome to them tonight. So let's go across to item 2, which is declarations of interest. Anyone got any declaration of interest they wish to pledge to the meeting? I see no. Also, just to bear in mind for the function there, if you can raise your hands online on the function that you've all got on the screen. If I don't read your name out, feel free to wave you see up the screen, so I'll make sure I get you, but hopefully we'll be on technology there. In terms of the chat function, bear in mind there are a couple of councillors maybe aware that they have got issues with connectivity, so they may have to put something in the chat box they want read out. So either myself or Laura will read it out on their behalf. Just bear in mind that people who watch us online can't read the chat function, so please, if you can, say your piece that you want to say live on there, and if you can't, like I say, we will make sure that's read out for you. So going to item 3, which is minutes of the meeting held on 23rd of July. So like I say, no excuse not remember it, only a month ago. So any comments on the minutes? I know there's been some bits afterwards with some additions to there. Anyone want to raise anything? So no hands raised, always a good sign. So can I have everyone in favour of adopting the minutes this evening? See lots of nods, great, and hands raised, brilliant, thank you very much, that's carried. So what two substantive items this evening. What I'm going to do in terms of the voting process is, I know we've got several recommendations on there. I'm going to take it as when we read through the items this evening. So we go on assuming everyone's in favour unless they indicate not. Now, I am aware that there may be some items that are contentious, so we will have a full go-around vote on each recommendation if we believe that they are going to be potentially contentious or votes either way. So Laura will go around and do the roll call on that. So is everyone okay if we go ahead with that, similar to what we did to the last meeting? Thank you very much. I see Gary's online now, so thank you, Gary, welcome. So that takes on to item 4, which is the Rushcliffe Equality scheme. So I believe I'm handing over to Sam now to take us forward there. Welcome, Sam.
Thank you very much. So just to introduce myself, I work for East Midlands Councils, and so I have supported Rushcliffe in the past and worked with councillors at Rushcliffe in the past, but I don't think I've worked with this particular group of councillors before. And I've been really pleased to be asked to support Rushcliffe with strategic HR issues following Julie Hicks' retirement earlier this year. And so one of the things that I've been working on is refreshing the equality scheme for the local authority. And so what we wanted to do was make sure that members had an input to a refreshed scheme going forward. And so that's the purpose really of talking to you and with you tonight, is to get your inputs into what we might want to focus on in the scheme going forward. What I have done is prepared a presentation, and I've done this in conjunction with Derek Hayden, who's with us tonight. So Derek might want to chip in if I miss things out. But if it's okay with you as a group, what I'll do is move on to the short presentation, if that's okay.
Absolutely, Sam. Yeah, I think if you go for presentation items you want to discuss, then we'll obviously go around the group and get any discussions or clarification, any points from there, and we'll take it forwards and, like I say, make sure everyone has the chance to put the questions to you and you to give us your wisdom of knowledge backwards, and of course any of our officer team who can dip in and give us support as well. So yeah, please feel free to fire ahead.
Thank you very much. So I'll just share my screen and bring the. So this is the presentation. Hopefully you can all see that now. No, I
can't. Sam, I'm afraid I can't, and I'm seeing some shaking of head. So it's not just me with my technology.
Okay, but can other councillors see it? Okay.
No, I don't think so. I'm not seeing. Can anyone see it? No.
No.
Okay. Bear with me.
Click share screen at the bottom of the.
Nice
Did
big
it
green
do
button.
that? Let me try again.
There we go. That's coming up.
Okay.
Okay. So can you see that now?
Absolutely, I can. Yeah, can everyone see
Yes.
that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Thanks,
Okay,
Ray.
sorry about that. So with the scheme itself, what we want to do is to focus on really making sure that the scheme is fit for purpose and focuses on the priorities for Rushcliffe as a community going forward. And these were the key aims of the scheme that was put in place in 2016 until this year. And so you can see that the priorities were these. And what we want to do is make sure that in reviewing these, we're taking into account the views of you as councillors, representing the interests of residents and visitors and businesses in Rushcliffe. And so you've got a key role in helping us shape this going forward to make sure that it's relevant for today. There's been a significant shift, I think, in the context for a scheme such as this, and COVID-19 has had a really big impact, particularly looking at the impact on certain communities in terms of outcomes from contracting the illness itself. Also, a significant impact of loss of employment or concern about employment security, and that has affected, in looking at the particular sectors that are affected, that has particularly had an impact on young people and also people with family responsibilities. So working mothers have reported that they have had their contracts shortened or been furloughed as a result of the COVID impact on businesses. As well, I think the COVID-19 has highlighted some of the other social challenges that certain members of our community face, and so it has worsened the situation in terms of social isolation and those mental health implications. And so it's expected for certain numbers of people who've been affected by COVID, either themselves or with their families, that the impact is likely to come in the form of some mental health implications for those. And also the sense of being at home all the time does also raise the issue around domestic violence. So that has become more of a factor within our communities, and social inequalities have been heightened. So where homes don't have access to technology, then those sort of children might be worse affected than families where they are able to access technology with the closure of schools and that sort of thing. So COVID has had a big impact on certain aspects of our community, groups in our community, and that's something that we might want to take into account in looking at the scheme going forward. There's also been some other social changes. So health inequalities has become sort of quite key in looking at that, the different outcomes generally for certain groups of people. Also, there's been demographic change, and the Black Lives Matter campaign has really sort of struck a chord within this country, having had the events that people have seen in America. And also in terms of gender identity. So there's been more of a flux in terms of how people want to perceive themselves or be seen in terms of gender. And sometimes that raises issues around terminology and whether or not people want to be identified in a certain way. I suppose bringing it into the relevance of a local authority, sometimes it sort of comes up when roles within local government come to the fore. So, for example, whether we have the position of a chairman or a chair, those sorts of things. But I think there's been some debate about that in the past, but I just think that gender identity issue has raised those types of things and brought them to the fore. So I think these were some of the factors that are prevalent now, more important now than when the last scheme was developed, and that these are factors that we might want to take into account in developing the scheme going forward. I think there's also been a shift in focus. So previously, the remit was around equality and levelling up, if you like. So equality and fairness have been the focus. And that sort of shifted towards greater diversity and respect for difference. And really, we're now moving forward in terms of trying to make things more inclusive. So the agenda for equality and diversity is just shifting its emphasis in that way. So again, we might want to reflect that in any future scheme to make sure that we're really enabling people to be included, either in Rushcliffe in terms of Rushcliffe as an employer, but also in terms of opportunities within the borough. So so that's sort of a factor again to consider. So then looking at this from an internal perspective, what we're currently doing is we're developing a people strategy and refreshing that to make sure that all of our policies and our workforce development approach is relevant, is focused on the council's objectives going forward, and helps to reinforce the culture that we want to recognise as being Rushcliffe's culture. And also looking at what our approach is so that we can be more inclusive, so that all colleagues can achieve their potential. And we're doing that by engaging with people within work, reviewing our policies and practices, making sure that training and development's available to increase awareness. So, for example, we're currently in the process of running some training and workshops for people on unconscious bias. So that's always an ongoing process of awareness building. And then monitoring progress to make sure that we're on track in terms of improving our representation. So these are the things that we're looking at from an internal workplace basis. Just to give you some demographics around that. So this is the current makeup of our workforce. And I've also, in terms of ethnic origin, provided some data as to how that compares with the census information. I would say that the census, though, was carried out in 2011, so clearly things would have moved on from then. But it's just to give you that picture and that context. when it comes to disability, we currently have 6% of our workforce who've declared that they are disabled. And what we've actually found in the last couple of years is we've had a big focus on supporting people with mental health problems. And I think that approach has enabled some colleagues to feel more comfortable in expressing that they may have a problem or disability. So hopefully that's going to encourage people around being more open around any disability or any support that they might want. If we look at the sort of broader Rushcliffe demographics, then health, this is information that came from that census. So this gives a picture of Rushcliffe and the percentage of the community who indicated that they had a lot of their day-to-day activities were limited by their health or disability issues. The first row is for all ages, and then underneath that you can see how that is focused on those who are of traditional working age, shall we say. So we're probably doing better than the locality when it comes to the representation of disabled people within Rushcliffe. Just again, some background around the ethnic origin profile of Rushcliffe from that census information, and you can see that we've got a predominantly white population. It will be very interesting to see how that census information changes when the census is redone in the next year. And the age profile of Rushcliffe as well. So generally as a borough, the population is older, shall we say, than younger. And so I think that, again, I would flag up that this was 10 years ago, so or nearly 10 years ago. So again, that ageing population would have moved on accordingly. So it's interesting to link that back to the health inequalities as well, and maybe what our residents might be looking for in terms of our service provision and inclusion. So looking at the external focus then, what we want to do is make sure that all of our services are delivered in a way that they're accessible, that they're relevant to people, that they pick up on those health inequalities and educational inequalities that may exist within our communities. And we do that by making sure that we carry out equality impact assessments. So whenever we have a new policy or a decision's made, we look to see what impact that might have on certain groups. And the other thing to say is that we can't do this alone. It's important that we work on this agenda with relevant partners to make sure that we're sort of making good progress on this and try and join up to make sure that we're doing what we can to make progress with equality and diversity. So those are the sort of main themes, I'd say, that you might want to take into account, that we might want to focus on with the new scheme. And as I said previously, what we'd like to do is make sure that we have that we're captured the insights that you've got to offer us in terms of giving us feedback. You know, do you think that these are the trends that we should be focusing on? Are there things that we're missing? And I really welcome your input to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sam, for that comprehensive presentation. Really much appreciated. And I want to appreciate the fact that you're been brought in by the Borough Council, not a Borough Council officer, and so I know it's trying to get used to how we do things as well, and putting this together, so really appreciate that. I think what we did, what's best to do now is we'll go around the room and get people's thoughts and opinions and questions to yourself, Sam, and then have a discussion as to where we're going to go as a group, what we'd like to see happen. So if people can now raise their hands, please, if they wish to indicate to speak. So, Councillor Jones, got your hand up, please.
Yeah, I mean, much of the presentation is, I think, uncontentious, and but translating it into a document, I imagine was going to take a heck of a lot of work. I mean, my comments really are related to looking at the last one, where there's no ethnic diversity shown on the front. The term non-white is used instead of black and ethnic minority. There's no it didn't seem to say what our proportion of black and ethnic minority staff was vis-a-vis the population, and it looks from the figures that the underrepresentation is for black people more than people of Asian origin. The young brand that's shown on that last document also shows no diversity. It's interesting there's been no mention of religious diversity either, which I think perhaps comes with some of the territory. I mean, my own ward, I think, has seen an increase in the number of black and ethnic minority residents. So I personally would expect the proportion to increase with the next census, assuming we have one. And then my last comment really is there's mention in the last one of gypsy and traveller accommodation needs being assessed, but there's no mention of the sites that are in the local plan part 1. And as we know in planning, that's become a problem because people of gypsy and traveller origin have been able to acquire land which wouldn't be desirable, but would, and it's not very well serviced, but in the local plan could be. And I think that needs a mention. Those are all my comments, Chair.
Thank you much, Rod. And I'm going to go back to Sam now. I mean, I was saying my views there, but I completely agree about the previous document. I think it actually shows how much the world has perhaps changed in 4 years, because looking at now, it's actually cringeworthy when you actually look at the previous document. But at the time, I'm sure my colleagues who were on the council at the time would have said that was where we currently were as a society, or some people may have anyway. Sorry, I read people, well, obviously got voted through, so it must have been the majority at the time. I wasn't on the committee when that was done. So, but like I said, I think it really does show now that, like I said before, where we are now in 2020. So before me go on anymore, I'll hand it back over to Sam to answer your points.
So thank you. Yes, I agree about the observations on the previous document, and I think it is it recognises really how things have changed so much since then, and what was relevant or thought appropriate at that point. Time has moved on, and also the issues have as well. I also welcome the thoughts around religious diversity and looking at services that link in with gypsy and traveller communities as well. Clearly, those there might be specific policy and other decisions that would be separate to this as a general equality and diversity scheme, but I can take that comment back, and we'll sort of look at that or refer that on really. But I think the comments sort of so far I think are really helpful in terms of flagging up what we want to move towards, and in any new document.
Right, I was muting myself there. Got on the roll. Rod, are you happy with that? Any further questions at the moment? Rod's done amazing.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, and thanks, Sam, for that. So next on my list is Councillor Gareth Williams. So Gareth.
Thank you. Yeah, I thank you for the presentation, and then like what's been said about that does show how long the world's changed in that short period, and everything with the recent events that's highlighted. So I don't think there's like kind of the aspects. I think they're spot on and where we need to look at going forward. But for me, it was just wanting to double check with like the recommendation that we've got, where it's saying about undertaking the work of reviewing this document. I would like to have that document kind of come back to scrutiny before it goes to be presented at Cabinet, for us to then to scrutinise what is actually in there. And what has been proposed to go before Cabinet before it actually goes before Cabinet, so we can scrutinise it again. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one to come back to perhaps myself and the officers there, because Sam's in piecework's been asked to, but myself, I completely agree with Gareth. I think it's absolutely right. Want to see what was suggested tonight. Obviously, if anyone suggested absolutely fine where we were, there'd be no need to, but I think so far, and we'll see what everyone else says when we go around the room, but it seems there's a lot more information we want to see part of this. And you know, I've got quite a few comments in as well, so it's only right that we do ask that to be put together and brought back, so otherwise we're asked to sign off on something that we've not really seen in that sense of a new plan. We really look at the old one and the comprehensive presentation we've had tonight. So probably get that, Gareth, and we'll go around the room and get everyone's views as well, and then obviously we'll put that as part of the recommendations at the end. We need to amend that to bring that back forwards, if you're okay with that. Thank you very much. So next, sorry, Sam, was there anything you want to say there?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. No problem at all. So next on this is Councillor Richard Mander. Richard.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think this is, thanks, Sam, for her presentation. I think that's really useful. It's interesting looking at the document, and it does look out of date now. To be honest, there was quite a lot of it that I thought looked out of date even then, and for a long time, and even now, we still refer to people as Madam Chairman in meetings, or some people do. I mean, that's curiously dated language and has been for a long time. And if we look at sort of how younger people now will, give their sort of, their name and then the pronouns that they prefer to use in terms of gender, that's becoming an increasingly common thing now. And it's, you don't have to, you shouldn't be making assumptions about people's gender or how they wish to be referred to as well. I think that's something we need to look at. And I was wondering that, I like Councillor Williams' thought about bringing it back to scrutiny. And I was wondering if during the process we could get input from LGBT IQA groups, or if we could get inputs from RACA or people, some other organisations from BAME groups as well, so that it's not just us saying this is how we think people should be referred to, but we actually sort of seek some input from groups and say, is this how you wish the council to sort of have its outward facing agenda? Is this how are we doing this in the right way? So I think there's quite a lot we can improve and look at there. And also on the disability side, I noticed that in the old document, there's pictures of the old sort of service centre, as it were, where people could come in and get assistance. Of course, we're moving to a new place in West Bridgford now, but a lot of our service, I think all our service centres, our contact centres rather, are still closed at the moment, and that is posing a problem for some people. There's some folks with sort of disabled disability issues who also have very, very poor internet connectivity, and I know that even now with all the work we've done over the years, we've still got poor connectivity on the internet in some parts of the rural bits of the borough. But there are people even in the large villages and West Bridgford as well, who for one reason or another have poor internet connectivity, and they don't have access to our services even more at the moment, and that's a real concern for me.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, those are really helpful points. and that I think I pick up on that aspect around choice, around how people are described, so and how they want to be described. And so that's one thing that some councils, I think, in the region are thinking about in terms of the sort of titles that are used for particular roles, so that it might be up to the individual chairperson, chairman, chairs preference as to how they might want to be referred within the context of meetings and that sort of thing. So you know, I think that there is that shift to personal choice more, and not making assumptions, and having a bit more flexibility around things. So I'd like, you know, that I'd sort of reflect that as one of the points that was made and that we can look at. And in terms of the access at the moment, I think we've just got to try and balance safety for everybody as well as access to buildings within the context of COVID, and making sure that we are providing services as best we can currently. However, there is definitely going to be, regardless of COVID, a move to sort of more digital working and access. And I think you know, councils are going to use this as a way of trying to modernise how they're delivering services for the community. And so as part of that, I think connectivity and access within the sort of virtual world, if you like, needs to be taken into account. And also you know, making allowances or adjustments where there are those challenges for people.
Yeah, no, absolutely, thanks, Sam. I think it's worth also, if we bring in Derek and Darryl, just about the points that Richard's raised about the community access and the moment to the centres of what we're doing. So either Darryl or Derek, if you'd like to pick that one up.
Yeah, I think, thank you, Chair. I think at the moment, speaking to Shirley Walton, Customer Service Manager, she's actually suggesting that there's actually, when we did have them open, and we have got Fountain Court that was open, there were actually half a dozen people a day coming through the door. So actually, I think there's probably still quite a lot of hesitance for actually people to visit them still, for people to go out. We probably need to recognise that the sort of demographic of the people that generally visit these people are more elderly, in the fact they're probably not able to access some of the issues that we can online. I think the only other thing I would add, and Sam sort of half covered it, we are currently sort of refreshing our Digital by Design programme. So we are going to be sort of revisiting that and looking to see what we can offer online, just to make it as easy as possible for everyone in this new world that we now live in. So we had a digital design programme, and we're currently looking to refresh that at the moment.
Yeah, thanks for that. Richard, does that cover everything? You happy with that?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the feedback.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that, those answers. Okay, next on my list is Councillor Walker, Rex.
Thank you, Chair. I was really pleased to see this topic come onto the committee's agenda originally, but tonight's presentation and the recommendations from the report, I think I need to say haven't met and fallen quite well short of my expectations when I saw it on the agenda in the first place. Unless I'm missing something, it seems that not that much assessment or review of the 2016 policy has taken place during the 4 years, and even since it came onto the agenda onto this committee's agenda. And if we're talking about reviewing that policy, I would have thought that the starting point would have been figuring out how well that policy has performed over the previous 4 years. You know, so if I look at, say, page 10 of the policy document, what we want to continue to improve by 2020, we have to eliminate discrimination, harassment and victimization. You know, what data have we got about discriminatory, harassment or victimization complaints within the council? Point 2, make sure people are treated with equality in mind. You know, what data have we got about people coming forward to say that hasn't happened? Point 3, create and develop good relations in our communities and in our workforce. How have we measured that? Point 4, as part of the law, we have to set objectives which show how we're going to achieve the duties above. What were the objectives that were set? Have these been achieved? You know, moving on, we have to monitor the demographic makeup of our residents and our workforce. Yes, we've seen that. We've seen that tonight. It's good, thank you. We have to consult customers and staff. Have they happened? What have people said? And you've talked about the equality impact assessments. You know, how well have they been used? Have they been measured afterwards? Things that we thought were going to have particular impacts, did they? You know, I'd be interested to know where are we at in terms of best practice in relation to recruitment policies. Have we got diverse panels for internal and external recruitment? Are we using anonymous, nameless applications, which you know have been seen to have a big impact on recruitment diversity? Now, if these things are all happening but haven't been reported, great. But if not, I would, you know, hope and expect there would be.
Sam may stay on mute for this one, but no, Sam, will you like to come back on those points, please?
Yeah, so I will agree that the focus of the presentation has been more on what we might want to look at going forward, rather than sort of using this time with you as a focus on monitoring the success of the last scheme, and that. But we can provide data for this group at a future meeting in terms of that. In terms of the recruitment, so we are actually in the process of reviewing the recruitment policy and updating it. I would also say, though, that we already have a process to make sure that the application forms don't reveal people's identity as far as possible. Obviously, with things like qualification, you might assume somebody's age, for example, by what year they might have done certain qualifications, but all identifying information is taken out when decisions are made about shortlisting to the next stage. And we do things like take positive action. So if somebody's got a disability and they meet essential criteria, they're guaranteed an interview. And we also do that as well for people who are from the services background, as well as part of our commitment to the Armed Forces Covenant. So we are sort of already have some of those things in place that have been referred to in terms of recruitment, but we are currently in the process of updating those policies to make sure that they're what we want to have, so that they're selecting the best people, attracting the best people, but doing that in a fair and inclusive way.
Okay, thanks, Sam. I think it's worth saying that I think part of this report or scary is the communication. For example, we do have performance indicators that we do cover at the corporate review group, but to be perfectly honest, the way that's presented is quite hard to read. Perhaps people aren't as used to it, and you know, being on one scrutiny group, so perhaps looking at how much we include as much information as possible in this plan going forward. Because like I say, if people are going to look at quite a plan, then perhaps don't know to look at a corporate review agenda from November 2019 to see that information. They expect to perhaps see it one place, and I can understand why. And and again, we have I'm going to come out there. Well, we've covered that with Councillor Williams' point. I think Rex has said the same as well as myself. It's going to be where we currently are. I think much more useful to bring it back where this scheme before we go to cabinet, so we can actually see that it's in place what we need to be, rather than actually pass on to cabinet and we're not sure what we're passing on. So just want to bring in Darryl if I can first, just from a officer point of view, with something that's been brought up by Councillor Walker there about some information in one place. Anything you want to add in, Darryl?
Yeah, there's a couple of points. I think sort of Sam's mentioned some of them. I think what Councillor Walker's sort of suggesting is we need to be looking slightly backwards as well as forwards as well. So looking at maybe some of the positive actions that have come over the last 4 years, and also maybe where we've not been as good. And we're quite happy to sort of try and look around some data around complaints that we may have had in various areas. I know, for instance, we've got things like the staff survey and the resident survey that go out that we can probably pick some feedback on that one as well. I think the only other thing that I would sort of mention, because it seems to be mentioned by a lot of people, if you look at the report, the way I see it is in 2 stages. So the report suggesting that what this group would do is feedback and help shape the new policy. So Sam will be going away and doing quite a bit of work on this. Then reports suggest that it should come back to this group to be endorsed prior to it going to Cabinet. So I think ultimately that's probably what you will be looking to agree on.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, we're going to go around to everyone's views, and I'll take it at the end. But I think the current stiff, what I'm hearing, unless anyone violently shouts up now and jumps up and down, so against it, I think that's the best option, because we obviously, a lot of us have been brought up by the committee tonight. I think it's right that we make sure as part of something before we pass the buck, so to speak, we'll recommend it to Cabinet. Otherwise, we're kind of doing half a job and not actually scrutinising the plan like we should be to go forwards. I mean, it was scrutinising really an old plan, which we're all saying is out of date. And, you know, obviously, Sam put some great stuff together in the presentation. I think it's right that we see that as part of the document and make sure that we're all happy with it. But again, everyone else's view when we go around, that's my view, and I believe other people looking at the nods and seeing. But we will cover that when we get to recommendation at the end, because again, we may have some disagreement or another recommendation as part of that. So, Rex, were you happy with that? Anything else you want to add in?
There's nothing I want to add at this stage.
Thank you very much. So next on my list is Councillor David Sims. Over to David.
Hi, thanks for that. Thanks, Sam, for the presentation. First and foremost, Rex, we must be telepathically linked, because I was feeling the same. John, I do believe that a scrutiny group shouldn't just scrutinise things going forward. The scrutiny group is there to scrutinise what hasn't happened. For the plan of the 4 years, it needs properly scrutinising to see where we have achieved and where we haven't, and to be open and honest on what we haven't done as a council. It's okay looking forward, but if you haven't got it right, what you've already planned to do, then how can you look forward further? You need to get it right first. That was the first thing that I would say. The other point that I've got is we seem to be focusing very much on the young people and the way the youth and people, you know, people's views and the modern way. But I represent a constituency that's quite mature, and they like the traditions, they like the titles, they like the doors to be opened for them, they like the good mornings. So I don't think that we should lose just lose our way to, because we have an aging population in the UK. So these people are active members of our community, and we still need to represent them.
Thank you, David. I think we're on the same wavelength about the scrutiny about what's not been done right. I think we could all perhaps, well, I potentially feel that this scheme shouldn't just be reviewed at the end of 4 years. It should be an ongoing process. Myself and Sam discussed this actually in a previous meeting before this one, which was that this needs to be a living document, in the sense of, because we've seen how far outdated we are in 4 years. Well, actually, we're probably outdated 3 years ago, 2 years ago, and some people may say outdated 10 years ago. But I think what's right is, when things change, when society has changed, that we should be reviewing this and see what we're doing right and wrong. You're quite right, points you made there. There may be some people who feel that we are going too much away and we're not actually being equal to them, or we're not actually ignoring their traditional views. Again, we need to keep monitoring it and seeing if perhaps we're going too much in one direction, need to slow down, or to make sure we're not ignoring other people's views as well. I think the whole point about equality plan is, you're right, we are trying to cater for everyone's needs, not just who's shouting the loudest or what the current trend is on Twitter or anything else. It is about everyone there, but then we can't ignore, again, what people's views are. Perhaps feel they're being ignored for a long time, or they identify. So yeah, thank you very much, David. I think that was really useful. I send it to Sam wants to add in anything further.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I think I'd sort of flagged up when it came to looking at the population information of the borough that there is a significantly older population within Rushcliffe, and so I want to sort of give that assurance that we're inclusive means being inclusive to all aspects of that population, and particularly the older population, given that's the framework within the Rushcliffe. So it's making sure that it's relevant, and I think you're right about it being a living document. So what I'd suggest is that we have a new scheme, but then separate to that, we've got a process of regularly providing information on how we're making progress with it and reviewing it. Is it still relevant, and do we need to change it to make sure that it's doing what we need it to do in terms of setting a direction for us to make progress?
No, absolutely. So like I say, a lot of this work is done. I know this goes to corporate overview, but again, like I said, because it's disjointed and perhaps in the way of the writing, we just need to be absolutely say make sure it's front and foremost. So when we get to the end of the meeting up under this item, sorry, we'll discuss with the group, but I do think a review every year just to make sure we are on the right path and look at the objective set if we need to get feedback to officers where to look at a bit differently going forwards, because I think we're only being fair on our office team as well. If we're slated up 4 years, we've not actually asked to look at it every year, they're going to say, well, hang on a minute, before you're happy, but you never said anything. That's what I'd be saying. Daryl's too polite to say that, but that's what I'd be saying if I were him. So I'll hand over to Daryl now to see if anything else. Daryl, you want to add?
Really, thank you, Chair. Just to endorse exactly what Sam said, I actually wrote down. I think we're very keen that this new document is live. It's not just sat on the shelf for the next few years. And also, again, as Sam mentioned, we know that we have an elderly population in Rushcliffe compared to some other areas, and I think we sort of said it's got to be inclusive for all parts of society, and that would include the elderly as well. So yeah, just really totally endorsing Sam's comments on that.
Great. Okay, thank you very much. David, is that okay with yourself? Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, except I wasn't just talking about the elderly. I put myself into a group of people that I don't want to not be represented. I think 40 pluses still want to be represented, and some of us are pushing being elderly, and which we're trying to hold that back. But yeah, I'm talking about the 40 pluses as well as the 40 minuses. Thank you.
If you find yourself there, David, put you in 40 plus, I would say a lot older, but there we go. We'll let you off in 40 plus. But yeah, absolutely, completely agree. We've got to be equal for everyone. So thank you very much. And over to Councillor Bansal. Bow.
Hi. So I think there's been a lot said already. And again, thank you for the presentation. Just a couple of points I wanted to make. One that Councillor Jones mentioned around religion, diversity. I think another thing to take into account is languages as well. Based on that, there's a lot of languages, different languages that are spoken. I think it'd be good just to note on that. We've been speaking about the aging population as well, the elderly folk, and I know for a fact some may be more comfortable if they speak in a particular language. They well may understand English, you know, they'll be fluent, they'll be good at it, but they'll feel more comfortable if it's a different language or certain words are used. And obviously within communication as well, when we're communicating, if certain words are used in their own language, just to start them off, get them into a comfort zone, and then from there. And then the second thing was, yeah, just you mentioned about living document. I fully agree. You know, I think there's a lot of things changing a lot of the time. You mentioned in the presentation, you know, the social change slide was really good, I thought, where you had, you know, Black Lives Matter, gender identity, health inequalities, demographic change. You had all the right things, and things are changing on a regular basis. So there are the 2 points I wanted to make, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Sam. Want to answer that point?
So thank you for sort of agreeing with that slide. I'm glad that it sort of hit the right things from your perspective, Councillor. And I think that issue around sort of religion and also reflecting people's preferences around language is definitely something that's important to take into account. And the council has arranged for sort of translation service to be available for people, but I think we need to just make sure that there's a greater awareness of the issues that people have when it comes to language and how we can be more accessible in the language that we're using with people.
Yeah, no, thanks, Sam. I think that's a good point to make sure. Again, it's all about the part of the communication. We have these translation services available, you know, and also people have perhaps got sight issues, but it's how we're putting that out there and letting people know we have that facility. And I think that was something that I know is very prevalent in Leicester, where I work, where there's obviously a lot of people who use the first language actually weren't aware they could get things translated. City Council really had to spend a small fortune go out there and say, we do translate, here's the stuff for you. So and that could have potentially helped, especially in the COVID-19 situation. So I think it's something which as officers I'm sure we'll take back and look at, see how we can push them more forwards. Darryl, anything you want to add to that? I'll just give you a job to do about asking you, so sorry about that.
Yeah, I think what's all picked up is generally members have raised a number of issues. I've just picked up around the religion, the languages, the gypsy, the community, etc. Sam sort of almost given us a starter for 10, if you like, and I think here tonight was that it would allow members to add to that document and to start shaping it. And I'm sure, Sam, you've sort of took a lot of benefit from tonight of being able to sort of get members' views.
Definitely.
Yeah, we'll be able to go away and look at that. And I think the other thing clearly we've picked up is we want it to be a live document. We want it to be sort of regularly reviewed and changes really as the world changes, because I think, as someone said right at the very start, where we were when this was first in 2016, we're in a very different place now.
That's great, absolutely. So thanks for that. And see, Councillor Jones, please hand back up again. So, Rod.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I mean, Bal has identified the fact that whether in the ethnic minority or black population or in the so-called white population, the elderly, which includes me, are a very diverse group, and it's important that officers or this report does not make assumptions about preferences. But the further point, and I don't want to complicate it too much, but I'm well aware that there's a proportion of the population who are deaf or have hearing loss, who of course would not be able to listen to this committee. I don't know what we do about that, but I just think it's important to dwell on the fact that, and I don't know what the number is, but I do know some people are in that situation.
Something we definitely need to go and look at. Again, I can understand that there's a subtitle version on YouTube. I'm not sure how, I've never used it, so I can't say how reliable it is and how good that is, but I think we'll take that away to look at. So I'll ask the member service team, Laura, I'm sure, write that down now, and we'll make sure we go into that about how more accessible these meetings while we're online as well. That's a great point. Sam, anything you want to add back about Councillor James's points?
No, nothing to add to that. Thank you.
Thanks. Darryl, anything you want to add in?
No, nothing further at the moment, thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for the debate. I just want to check, Councillor Dickman, I know you're having issues saying a bit. Is there anything you want to say? If there is, wave your hand, or you can't hear you, so take that as a no. If there is, feel free to put in the chat box, or anything else while I do my little sum up piece, and we'll come back to you by reading that out. So yeah, like I say, I really do appreciate everyone's views, and I think it's been really great to have everyone's input to come into this, and I'm sure Sam and the team got some really valuable stuff to take away. I completely agree with the point. Yeah, I completely agree with the points about the previous document. I think we can all say that hasn't been scrutinised, reviewed as much as it should have, or anywhere near as much. And I think, especially now, we're hopefully all on the same page that we do keep this as I've said the word living document, but actually what I really mean by that is that we keep refreshers, we keep looking at it, because things do change, and we should do that with virtual policy. We do, I think, especially the equality policy, and it was quite timely. This was due this year to look at anyway, but I think with what's been happening across the world in the last few months, I think it's really much more important. We perhaps would have looked at this anyway, but so it's a good tie-in in terms of bringing this forward as one piece here to look at rather than doing it in piecemeal fashion. But if we can take that away, sound of the points made there today, and put that together. I mean, we're going to look at the recommendations now. I think we have a slight change, which I'm just going to put forwards. And again, Laura, so you don't shout at me, we've got to put this in writing as well afterwards for the minutes. But at the moment, we've got 3 recommendations, which is to respond to initial officer proposals in respect to the review of the Council's Equality Scheme. Well, I think we have done that, so we can see there. The second one is to request that officers undertake further work to develop a refreshed equality scheme to be endorsed by this group. And C is that the refreshed equality scheme to be presented to Cabinet. Now, from what views come back tonight, I think everyone seems to be on the same page, which is that we want this to come back to scrutiny group first, where it goes to Cabinet, so we can actually look at with the points that have been asked to be raised part of that. So again, we're going to have to look at timelines part of that. I know our next meeting is 7th October. It depends where this was going to fall on the Cabinet's work programme, which I confess I've not learned off by heart and know what's due on October, November. So we'll have to do that piece of work after the meeting with the officer team to make sure we don't rush it, but at the same time we go to timeline that we are bound to do by making sure it's done in 2020 as part of the process to refresh the scheme. So it'll be looking at number B, request that officers undertake further work. That's fine. I think C needs to be changed to that the refreshed equality scheme to be brought back to scrutiny group prior to going to Cabinet. I mean, to keep that wording as simple as fact. Is everyone okay with that? If not, please put, yeah, looking like everyone is. Seeing everyone, if you're not, then feel free to say now, because I'm seeing everyone says fine. Okay, so if we can have, again, while it seems that was okay, I'm going to take that as, unless anyone's against that, I'm going to take those 3 recommendations, the amended recommendations forwards now for this item. So everyone in favour? Looking like everyone's in favour with hands up, and not anyone against or abstain. I'm not seeing, but again, shout out now if you are. So, okay, that's recommendations are carried then. So thank you very much, and thank you very much, Sam, for joining us on a, I say, rainy evening. But like I said, hopefully you found it much more interesting than Coronation Street and EastEnders. So thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. I'm not going to make you stay for the rest of the week. Don't worry. Again, see you soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, thank you much, everyone. So the next item on the agenda is the fireworks item. So as you may have seen, there's been some items in the press regarding this. There was a Nottingham Post article, and again, I've been contacted by a few people, myself and other councillors may have as well. But we just need to be, before I start this, to be absolutely clear what we're looking at tonight. So this is on Rushcliffe Borough Council events that we do. So this is not about the fact we're going to say that anyone, whatever we say tonight is going to affect someone who does a display in their back garden or out there. Although we potentially, if we were to recommend that we're going to do an external PR campaign, we're not saying as of tonight, if we were to suddenly vote as a group to stop doing fireworks displays, for example, on borough council events that goes across the whole borough to every single person doing it. That's not what we're saying. What we're going to be doing is looking at this item because it was brought forward to us as part of the work programme. If everyone's aware that at the full council meeting, it was brought forward by Councillor Thomas and amended by myself into a motion to bring this to communities group, because it's obvious that this is a topical subject for many people, and I think it was right, in my view, that we brought to this committee as a communities group to scrutinise the council's current position, to discuss it openly with members of the group, and then to make a steer forward that goes to Cabinet. Again, where we decide here tonight, this has to go to Cabinet. We are not the policymaker group, we're here to scrutinise. Again, for anyone who's watching, expecting that there's going to be a great headline where everything's banned from tomorrow, that's not the case. Whatever decision we make will need to be endorsed by Cabinet at a later date. So hopefully, I just wanted to put that point there. I know some people may be tuning in under that's expecting a different answer to that, what I've just said. So hopefully everyone's okay with that. I'm going to hand, is it to yourself, Darryl, or is it Derek taking lead on the report on this one?
Well, I'm quite happy just to do a very brief introduction. So Derek has actually prepared a short presentation. I think it's a slightly different report to one we've just been discussing with Sam, in the fact that this is very much work that's already been done at officer level by Derek and his team, and it's really for members just to have a sort of discussion and debate about it, and then come up with a preferred option in regard to recommendations. So I think if you're happy, Chair, we'll hand over to Derek for his presentation.
Absolutely. Over to you, Derek.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeler. So as Darryl said, I have prepared a short presentation this evening. So if you can tell me if you can see that report. Yeah.
I can.
Great.
Everyone, hope everyone else can. If you can't, please say so now.
Yep, all good.
Thank you. So you have the substantive report in front of you, but this is to provide a summary of that report, and then really to ask questions in terms of the content of the report. Sorry. So the purpose of the report is to provide the scrutiny group with information in order to be able to consider the future use of fireworks at the council's events. So really looking at what is within our control and from the events function that operates within community development. The report follows a council motion on the 5th of March regarding the adverse effects of loud fireworks and the welfare that they may pose to vulnerable people and animals. The group is asked to consider options from one of the following proposals: discontinue the use of loud fireworks at the council events, so a modification of the current policy. Discontinue the use of all fireworks at council operated events. Now that's not across the entire borough, but really what we can operate as an authority, or no change to the current event arrangements. Just to put that in context in terms of what the current arrangements are, we have been using fireworks as part of our events programme for over 15 years, and that is incorporated into the popular West Christmas light switch on. So we only have fireworks at one event each year. The event is a 4-minute display, and it comes at the culmination of the event when we do the countdown, we turn on the Christmas lights, and then we start the fireworks. That approximately costs us £2,000 per annum, or it cost us £2,000 in 2019. There are no records of formal noise complaints in relation to the fireworks that we have at our public events, namely the Westbridge Christmas lights. And in the period of 2018 to 2019, the council received 12 complaints regarding fireworks at locations. And it's important to stress these are events outside of the borough control. They mainly relate, the nature of those complaints mainly relate to domestic fireworks in people's back gardens and at home displays, and the noise and effects that has caused to local residents within that community, just to put that in context. The body of the report follows 5 key lines of inquiries, and I've just pulled out some of the key topics, particularly in relation to the considerations this evening. There's a growing body of evidence regarding the health implications of fireworks, both upon people and animals. So people with sensory impairment disorder. There's a full list of medical conditions. I haven't attempted to list them all, but people that are on the autistic spectrum or suffering from dementia, people that are suffering from other conditions as well, hypercosis, in terms of the volume and noise, in terms of people that are suffering post-traumatic stress syndrome. So if people have had an experience and are startled by loud noises, it can cause flashbacks and triggers. But in the consideration of that, alternatives to traditional fireworks are starting to enter the marketplace, which takes into account the traditional fireworks that we are mostly used to, such as reduced noise fireworks. You'll see in terms of larger light shows, in terms of the use of lasers is becoming really popular. And in very recent years, you may see New Year's Eve gatherings that drone shows with lights attached to them are starting to become popular and enter the marketplace, usually at larger New Year's Eve and larger commercial gatherings. The recommendations of the report is to continue to consider the information provided at the meeting and make recommendation to Cabinet on the future use of the fireworks at council events. And then really, based on the discussion and decisions made to council, or to Cabinet, is to launch a communications campaign if we are to adopt a change to our current policy to be an influencer to the wider community, to people that have fireworks, to consider the approach that we are taking if we are to change our current arrangements, so that we can advocate in terms of what we're doing, and then to be a best practice for change if that is what we consider in terms of the recommendations this evening. So that is just a very, very brief summary of the substantive report that you have in front of you. But I'm happy to answer questions or give back to you, Chair, to open it up for discussion.
Well, that was great, Dave. Really appreciate that. And so I'll do the same form in terms of going around the room, people asking questions to come back to you on. We've got hands raised already. I think, like I say, it's really worth putting the point up there again that we are talking about what we should be doing as a council of our events in terms of what we want to do. Although this also the second recommendation is to do a PR campaign if the cabinet was to take whatever recommendations we say to encourage other people to do so. We can't force anyone, like I say, to do this, but it's just about the standard we want to set as a council, what we want the policy to be going forwards. And so without any further ado, I think it's worth going around the room first to get views on this. I did have hands up, they seem to have disappeared off my screen, so if it's technology or anything else. I did have Councillor Jones on there. Oh, yes, come back on now. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, wouldn't like to disappoint you, Chair, I'm being first up.
Well, I see, I was getting quite concerned there, Rod, but I'm fine now, thanks for reassuring.
I'd just like some clarification about the cost of the council's event, because I thought it was 20,000, not 2,000, but maybe I'm mistaken.
Yeah, no, it's 2,000 in 2018. 2017-18, it was 1,200, but market forces and price increases meant that it cost £2,000 for the form and display last year. Okay, thanks for that clarification. I think we've got to remember in this debate that this started off with recommendations from the RSPCA, but Darren's presentation has identified the impacts on a wide range of other people in the community. I'm a bit surprised that we're making recommendations to Cabinet and not for consultation with the public. But I mean, personally, I support the first recommendation, which is for less noisy fireworks in our display, and to encourage other people in the population to do so, and preferably not spread fireworks all the weeks round, because for all the reasons that Darren's identified. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just in relation to the consultation, as you'll be aware, the motion was raised on the 5th of March, and we went into a period of lockdown in COVID. In terms of going through the key lines of inquiry, and I've done a substantive amount of research into those points, it was questioned the appropriateness at that time in the pandemic to go out to the public around this matter, considering that we operate at one event, and in terms of the discussion this evening is a range of options. So it was within that context that public consultation has been made. But we have, since the report has been published, received a number of comments in relation to the report itself today, and obviously has received some media interest in terms of the report itself.
Is that okay with yourself?
Thank you, Chair. That's fine. I understand the reasons for the lack of consultation with the public, but there was quite a debate in the council, and it was well supported that this be looked at. So if it's possible, we know that the laser lights are not going to be possible in the avenue because of the lack of tall buildings to run them on, although that would have been great if that was possible. So yeah, that's why I support the first of the options. Thank you, Chair.
I agree with you on the points around the public consultation in ideal circumstances. I think what would be useful is if tonight we do recommend a change to the current status quo, then there's no reason to say we can't do a feedback exercise part of our great communication team after an event if it's changed, so we can get that feedback through. And I think, like I say as well, because there was quite universal support of looking at this item at the council when it went through unanimously, as I recall, I think that shows again, as the people's representatives, we asked it to come here and to be looked at. So there's definitely avenues we can look at. I'd completely agree. Derek did the right thing in not going out at the time with the COVID-19 pandemic, because I think it would have been a very negative reaction to the process rather than and give us some distorted feedback on the item. So thank you very much for that. Okay, and Darryl, if it's okay, do you want me to come back to you at the end to write up any points rather than each item, or would you rather come in after each person's spoken?
No, I'm quite happy to come back at the end.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so go to Councillor David Sims. David.
Thanks, John. I'm going to start. It's very difficult for me to be constructive about this motion because sometimes I think I'm losing the will to live. I understand that there are disabled people. We all understand that people have got animals. I've got animals myself. This is for a 4-minute Christmas display. We are debating to stop using fireworks, which is really part of our tradition, Guy Fawkes Night. We're debating on noise reduction fireworks. Well, let's have less fun, shall we? How less is the decibels on noise reduction fireworks? Do we define that? I just can't see for a 4-minute display and for no complaints on that 4-minute display. I don't understand why we're even debating this. I just think it's a very slippery slope because fireworks and bonfire night is part of the British tradition. This is what we do. It's part of our culture. And yes, Guy Fawkes didn't get his way and he didn't go bang, but the fireworks are to simulate what would have happened if it did. And I just think we really need to be cautious on this and be sensible on it. And like I say, it's really difficult. I've got animals. I've got a couple of dogs. But does it stress them out? Probably not. A lorry going down the road when they're walking probably stresses them out more. Do I ask the lorry to be quiet? Probably not. So again, I'm sorry for the sarcasm, but I just don't believe that we should even be debating this, if I'm honest. For a 4-minute, no complaint, and 12 complaints in the whole of the borough for fireworks. 12. Out of how many people, how many homes and households, and how many celebrations? We're not just talking about Christmas. We're not just talking about Guy Fawkes Night. We're talking about Diwali, Eid, all use fireworks, New Year's Eve. You know, when this is a slippery slope, and for us to have less fun as far as I see it. My children have always loved, and I've always loved fireworks. That's all I've got more to say about it.
Well, thank you, David. I really appreciate your honest views on it, because I think sometimes people don't want to say what they really think. I think it's important to put that view out there and then for people to discuss and also potentially put their confidence being put their point of views forward. So there was a point made there from Councillor Sims about the noise difference. You're right to just address that for me, please.
Yes, yeah. So in the body of the report, section 4.5.1.2, you'll see that the RSPCA in its campaign Bang Out of Order in terms of the reduction. So we operate our fireworks in West Bridgeford. They're contained to be 120 decibels. So they're level C category fireworks display. That Bang Out of Order campaign from the RSPCA is looking to bring down that decibel level to about 90 decibels. What we would do in lieu of having the louder bang is have audible music. So it would be more of a concentration on the focus of the interesting fireworks in terms of the visual display rather than the loud bang, if we to go with the modification recommendation. So in terms of council systems, obviously we could go to the removal of fireworks at all. The middle recommendation is to potentially reduce it down the noise levels to around 90 decibels and have music and concentrate on the visual aspects of fireworks, which we all like, or no change at all. So in answer to your questions, 120 decibels to 90.
Thank you. You okay with that, David? Final question.
Yeah, thanks for that. But I'll just reiterate, this is 4 minutes once a year. No complaints.
Absolutely, and again, completely got that point on board. I think it's worth saying as well is that though we are talking about one event at the moment, if, for example, the council decided that we're going to have an event every week, not saying we would, but this policy would be on every event, not just the one we currently do. That's why, again, it's what time, just to put that into context well for perhaps people who are watching and wonder why we only have one event at the moment. Again, that was a decision made on cost grounds, but again, we could, if some nice benefactor wants to give us £20 million a council, we could decide to put one event on each week, and this policy would affect that as well. So again, David, absolutely your point on the current where we currently are.
Can I just jump in, John?
Of course, yeah.
We quieten our fireworks down. Does Gedling? Does Newark? Does Leicester? No. So what would we do? We're having another firework display. I'll go to the boring Rushcliffe one, or go to one that, you know, that is a proper fireworks display. I keep on saying I'm finding it very difficult, but I'll shut up now.
No, David, I appreciate you asking the question there. From my understanding, Broxtowe have decided to go to silent fireworks. I'm not aware of any other local authority in that, but Derek would be much more the expert than me, just to put that into context. Well, I think it's a good point. We'll put that across there. Derek, anything you can add to that?
Yeah, they've gone for promoting and advocating reduced noise fireworks, so the quieter option, and you'll see that Sainsbury's in terms of follow that trend in terms of, so it's about that increased awareness about the impact that they may have, and this is the debate we're having this evening, because you know the comments are valid in terms of the enjoyment that people experience from having fireworks, and about that experience. It's just understanding the impact it has, and that will form the basis of the recommendations.
That's okay, thank you. Okay then, so go on to Councillor Healy next on the list. Leo.
Thank you, Chairman. Whilst I agree with David's points, you know, there are 2 or 3 big events, Bonfire Night he mentioned, New Year's Eve, and traditionally, yes, it's always been fireworks, so on and so forth. But I think we mustn't forget the point that this really is just a one-off, purely a Rushcliffe Borough Council event. I think if we think back, we know the borough has been somewhat instrumental in banning certainly Chinese lanterns over the years for obvious reasons that we're all aware of. Helium balloons, perhaps to a lesser degree. And I would ask the question really, well, why do people go out to firework displays? Is it about the noise or is it about the visual effect? And I think, quite frankly, it's probably as much, if not more, about the visual effect than it is this noise. And having been down the avenue when the lights have switched on over the years, there is so much music going on around you anyway, that even a silent firework display still is going to look very, very effective. And perhaps not have the impact it does on dogs, animals, and individuals who suffer from numerous illnesses. So personally, I think it could be a point for the borough just to set the standard, see what happens. As I said, it worked on the balloons, it worked on the lanterns. Individual choice at the end of it, but I think people go out to see them rather than to hear them personally. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Healy. I don't think there was any points for Derek on that one, so I'll let him off for this item. So next on to Councillor Mallender. Richard.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think Councillor Healy's got a good point there. I mean, yeah, I enjoy going to see fireworks, but as I say, I go to see the fireworks, and I know that's, you know, there's loads of people go and sort of go for the whole, you know, event, and there are lots of firework displays across the whole of the sort of the Nottingham urban area, around, bonfire night. But it's true, we also get, Diwali and Eid and Chinese New Year as well. So we get a lot of displays. Locally, where I am, Lady Bay, part of my ward is adjacent to Bridgewood Park. So I've got some residents who do have fearful dogs that are out of their minds, hiding under stairs and sort of under tables and things like that because of the noise. And it's not just because of this display, it's because fireworks have become a much more year-round thing. They're on sale, it's easy to get them pretty much year-round. You can order them on the internet as far as I can tell. Certainly from where I am, I get complaints about displays that turn out to be ones on the other side of the river, usually at Colwick Park, because the sound just carries straight across the river from where we are. And so I see Jonathan nodding as well. I'd imagine he gets some people in his ward as well with the same kind of issue. Yeah. Yeah. There are some pretty spectacular alternatives that are out there now. I've seen some footage of drone displays. They do tend to be very big, I've got to say, and not something that I think would be appropriate for the scale for the event that we're talking about in the centre of West Bridgford. As I say, we do have just the one. I think fireworks are a lot more spectacular in terms of the noise and the view, the spectacle, than the ones I remember seeing when I was a kid. And I like that. But there is a problem, I think, with the noise that has been put forward in the report. We do get complaints about it. Even if some people don't put the complaints into the council, perhaps they're putting them into the wrong council in some cases. And quite often you see a lot on social media. There are people with disabilities who sort of have problems with it. Certainly animals have problems with it. There's, we're up against the countryside on the other side of Lady Bay. There's a lot of horses there. They don't know what fireworks are. They don't care it's November the 5th. They just know there's a hell of a noise and they're scared. And there's always danger that they will run and sort of catch themselves on a barbed wire fence or something like that. Now, I'm not saying we should ban fireworks in the same way that we've banned sky lanterns and other things as well. But I do think it's worth going for the reduced noise ones. Because that is clearly causing problems for some people and for animals. And I think it's also worth looking at some of the alternatives. If we can't go down the route of lasers, then let's have a look at drones and see what's out there. They might be more expensive at the moment, but in the future, they could be something that's a lot more popular. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Amanda. So, was there anything you wanted to add on the previous two comments by councillors, just about anything there or not? They want to ignore you if there was anything you wanted to add?
I don't think there was any questions raised.
Yeah, no, it's not. That was great. Thank you. Okay, going down my list in terms of order, I've got Councillor Williams next. So, Gareth.
Thank you. Yeah, I can see both the points and sides of this argument, that it is just one event that we have as a council. It's 4 minutes long. And all that. We advertise it really well. Everybody in the local area knows when it's going on, and potentially with the fireworks taking place. So I can see with then the other way of banning all fireworks, that often they do cause stress in local communities, where often people just doing a display from their back garden, the neighbour gets it, and there's no kind of consideration for them with letting them off. So I think this is kind of a debating a national kind of approach that ultimately needs to be changed, like what the RSPCA are doing. But we've just been for the last hour nearly debating about the equality scheme and how we should be being more have equality around with the council and what we do as a council. So I think with that, with our display, that we should be looking to kind of doing a display that can include everybody from our society, so they can come and enjoy not just the fireworks display, but the Christmas light switch on, which is what this event is for. in my feelings, is that the majority of the people who do go for the Christmas event and the Christmas lights switch on, and they want to see the lights when they get switched on. The fact that there's fireworks when they get switched on, I think is a side thing. So for personally, I would be supporting like the first option, to have a reduced one or an alternative form of display. And I think that, like it's been said, technology moves rapidly so much, like with the use of drones, and you see it in all areas of society, like policing and rescuing and all that, that the technology that goes into them is just been phenomenal in recent years. So yeah, maybe in a few years' time we might be having ones of those and applicable for our size event. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ince, for that one. I think there wasn't any more questions to Derek, so again, let him off this one again. So to Councillor Bansal, please, Val.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm in favour of option A. You know, let's reduce the noise, 120 down to 90. I think it'll just benefit so many people. Let's take it back to last Christmas. I'm not going to sing it. Just like last Christmas in West Bridgeford, the lights, when they were being switched on, you know, first the children were upset, Santa was busy, and then the pets went crazy with the fireworks. So you know, if you can have reduced noise or less noise on the fireworks, I think that's only a good thing. The other point I wanted to make is influence the wider community. I think that's a great thing. If we can, where we can, I think that'd be great to do that. And just for Councillor Sims, you know, you made a good point about Diwali and other festivals, etc. What I would say is, you know, I celebrate Diwali. We don't do fireworks. We just have lots of food. I'll invite Councillor Sims over, have some food with us, and light a candle, and we can watch that.
So thank you, Councillor Bansal, and yeah, I had the conversation with Councillor Sims off on that invitation. But hopefully I'm invited as well. I'm around the corner. I want some free food. I'm always up for free food, so I'm coming around and celebrating with you. So I'm having myself there along anyway.
Anytime.
Yeah, and, thank you very much. So then I'll go over to Councillor Walker, Rex.
Thanks, Chair. So look, really, this is a question about balance, isn't it? On the one hand, fireworks have been a traditional way to mark certain celebrations, and as a result are loved by some. On the other, we've heard about the negative impact that they can have on some groups. So, you know, we're being asked to think about what is a reasonable way for the council to deal with that for the event that they run. That's what we're talking about. There's lots of other things around this that have been alluded to about irresponsible neighbour behaviour, etc., etc. But we're talking about what is a reasonable way for the council to take on their events. And look, my assessment would be that the continuing use of existing fireworks at a well publicised, pre-planned public event for 4 minutes once a year is not an unreasonable course of action for the council to pursue, bearing in mind that balance that we've talked about. So were it to come up to a straight vote at the end, I think I'm on C, aren't I? Carry on as before.
Okay, no, thank you, Councillor Walker, for bringing the points up there. I think again, your views are very much welcome to say with Councillor Sims, and everyone's put the points on. I think it's right that everyone puts where they currently are. They've got my views I want to put forwards, but I've just seen that Councillor Sims has put his hand back up, so just bringing Councillor Sims for I. Do you mind summing up, David?
Yeah, I just wanted to take up the offer of food and celebrations. The other thing is I go regularly to Melton Road on Leicester to celebrate the Festival of Light, and I'm sure I sample lots of fireworks there that are very loud. So coming from Leicester myself, yeah, it's something that I do quite a lot. So so I'm a bit confused about that one.
I think about considering to say, as someone who works in Leicester and been down there as well, I've seen the great displays there as well across the rest of the country. So I really thank everyone for being part of the debate this evening. And sorry, I just want to make sure if there's anything that Councillor Dickman, my chat seems to have crashed or I cannot in the bottom. Are you okay with everything so far? Yeah. So is there anything you want to add? Okay, sorry, didn't want to miss you out. So there's been a wide range of views put forward. My personal view is on option of silent fireworks. Just looking at the evidence, take out personal, it's everything else for myself. I think with the RSPCA evidence that Derek's put forward, and with the evidence from people from the Autistic Society and other disabilities who perhaps show these events, my personal view as the Borough Council is we try to make the events as inclusive as possible. Bear in mind that although we would do a PR campaign if the recommendation goes through with that tonight, for people change, I think it's quite realistic. No, we're not going to, you're not going to see every firework display to be silent anytime soon. So will be choice out there for people who perhaps want to go to a different display and experience either fireworks with noise or no fireworks at all, or again to come to an event with silent fireworks. But for me, just looking at evidence alone, I'm someone who doesn't have family members who have those conditions, or my own dog, although how many family dogs who doesn't suffer from anxiety FEL. So I'm thinking also what we've got to bear in mind, anyone who's watching and also the members here, is that people have their own views. Sometimes it's personal to people if they experience these, or again, if you've never experienced the issue of fireworks, you really enjoy it, you can have that view. And I think that's why it's really important that everyone puts out their point of view, so that's covered. So that's where I'm currently at. So Derek, just want to bring you back in. Anything you want to cover that's been raised by council, anything you want to just add on before I go to Darryl?
No, I think it's fine. What I would say is obviously we discussed the Christmas light switch on as the one firework, but the policy would look at all of the events. If we would be advocating that choice for if we did have other events as well. So it would be setting that policy. So if depending on the recommendation or change or no change.
Yeah, and I think it's also worth saying there as well that if a change is put forward tonight, what I said earlier about communication, getting feedback from people, so we really get that back. So again, we've got some more evidence based for, again, we always review this going forwards on a yearly basis. I think if we do have an event in November, or whenever we have an event, to make sure, again, we're getting people's views as well, and perhaps other councillors who perhaps want to go down and see the display and see how it works. I know if there is events, I'll certainly go down if we were to change it, just to see, and again, see the reaction around the people. So yeah, so effectively on board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Okay, Carol, you and anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think it's been an interesting discussion, and thank you, Derek, for the presentation as well. I think the sort of thing I would pick up on is we're looking to recommend one of 3 recommendations to Cabinet, one which is basically the reduced noise fireworks. One is a total ban, which doesn't seem to have really sort of been discussed, or has been discussed, but doesn't seem to have much support. And then the third one is no change to where we are at the moment. And obviously the no change recommendation would potentially make the comms campaign probably more difficult to deliver if we weren't to be seen as a exemplar of good practice. And it's probably just worth sort of recommending, Chair, that we're very clear on the numbers when it comes to decision on either sort of reduced noise ones or no change.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's like you said about the launch public community campaign. I know, again, it would have to go through Cabinet whatever decision we make this evening. I know the legwork would probably be starting from tomorrow in terms of to put something together. Yeah, if there's anything you want to add in terms of numbers to get that context to the group, please do so. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I think probably more what I was referring to with the numbers is just from listening to the discussion and debate, I think there's some councillors that maybe are going to be looking at a sort of potential no change to where we are, and some that are looking at the reduced noise level, and probably just need to make sure we record those. I know we've got Laura on anyway.
Yeah, no, my plan was, with everyone's permission really, was to go around each councillor and then for them to give their options. So we'll go with either A, B or C. So go do a roll call to get that, and I'll just clarify at the end in case anyone perhaps mistakes. I'll go through the options fully, just so we make sure we get everyone. Again, I picked up the same as you. There are people with different views. So we want to make sure we absolutely get everyone's decision recorded down this evening. And then, like I say,
that'd be helpful.
Then also at the end, if Laura or Henry, whoever's taking the vote, just reads out again, just to make sure who's voted for what, just so we're absolutely certain that no one has voted for something that they didn't want to vote for, because that won't happen. So want to give Laura the time to just get everyone's names together. So I think it's worth, again, just making sure everyone's aware which option is which, because I know there's some different terminology used. So option A is to discontinue use of loud fireworks at council events. So option A is to go to the silent fireworks. Option B is to discontinue the use of all fireworks at council events. So that's to ban them altogether. Option C is status quo. We don't change everything. We keep going forwards where we are now. So is everyone happy with that? So unless anyone indicates otherwise, what we'll do is Laura will go around the room, and if you can say either option A, B, or C, and then again at the end, we'll just read out those results there, and then anyone can hand on the case if perhaps those.
John, can you read those options again? Because the reduced noise didn't come out there, so that's completely silent, no fireworks, or normal.
Okay, so option A is to discontinue the use of loud fireworks at council events. So that's option A. So that's to go to silent fireworks. That's option A.
Silent fireworks.
Sorry, Parshman, sorry.
Reduce noise.
Reduce noise. Sorry, that's my fault, Councillor Sims. Misworded there. So discontinue use of loud fireworks. Go to the low one. So the partial. So it says partial ban in brackets there. And option B is to discontinue the use of all fireworks. So option B is a full ban on any fireworks being used whatsoever. Option C is status quo. So thank you, Councillor Sims, for clarifying that. I appreciate that. So if we go round the room, Laura, are you ready? If we go round with the roll call.
Yeah. So
Okay.
Councillor Bansal.
Option A.
Yeah. Councillor Dickman.
There you go. That's good old-fashioned technology for you. That's C, just to say, Laura.
Yeah. Yeah. Councillor Healy.
Leo?
Muted.
Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute, sorry.
Sorry, option A.
Option A. Councillor Jones.
Option A.
Councillor Mallender.
Option A.
Yeah. Councillor Sims.
Sorry, say that again, Laura. The audio just went outside there.
Councillor Sims.
No change, option C.
Okay. Councillor Walker.
C, please.
Was that C?
Yeah, C for Charlie.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Wheeler
Option A.
and Councillor Williams.
Option A.
Okay. So we've got Councillor Bansal, option A, Councillor Dickman, option C, Councillor Healy, option A, Councillor Jones, option A, Councillor Mallender, option A, Councillor Sims, option C, Councillor Walker, option C, Councillor Wheeler, option A, and Councillor Williams, option A. So,
Is everyone happy with those results? Any change to what they, if you put your hand up now if it was misread? But if my count was the same.
so we've got 6 in favour for reduced noise fireworks and 3 in favour for no change. So reduced noise fireworks is carried.
Okay, thank you very much, Laura. Thank you everyone for their part in that debate and for votes there. I think that was really, really thorough debate and was put the view across. I do appreciate that. So on to the next item, which is the work programme. So again, as a reminder from the last meeting, the next meeting date has changed. So if you make sure your diaries are in sync, it's the 7th of October. The reason is for the flooding and drainage that we're inviting the drainage priority, which is the county council, to come down, as it makes obviously sense to work with them. And the previous date they couldn't do, but they can make that one. And at the moment, we're going to cover the Rushcliffe Nature Strategy. 28th of January is down for Future of Welton Golf Course and the Dog Family Littering and Fly Tipping Part 2. And 29th of April 21 is Carbon Management Plan Update. Obviously, as part of tonight, we've got the equality scheme that will fit back in there, which was discussion with officers where that fits in with the cycle cabinet. But go to Darryl. Darryl, anything you want to put forward to this changes?
No, there's nothing from me, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone got any comments on the work programme? Anything you want to change, discuss, amend? Not seeing any hands up. So I'm going to take that that we're going to recommend the group agrees the work programme. Oh, sorry, Councillor Mallender, just see your hand pop up.
Yeah, I was just going to sort of say, remind everyone if they're thinking about scrutiny, and not just on this group, but other things, to feed back to Tina Kombalak's email about where we go with scrutiny in the future.
Absolutely, thank you, Councillor Mann, for bringing that point up. I think it's really worthwhile to say. I mean, I know we've only had this way for just over a year now, isn't it? I think this, but I think there's enough. I hope now for people to know where we go forward with scrutiny. But Councillor Mann is absolutely right. For people to put their views in either way, and again, if you've got any way that you think this community group could change or anything we should do, again, please pick up the phone to myself or to Val. We're happy to take feedback on board and look at things we can change. As you're aware, myself and Councillor Bansal on the corporate overview group as the representatives on this group. Again, from that one, in terms of being through there, from what I've seen, we have the most items that come through the matrix, so to speak, and from the office, which I really I'm delighted about. I think that's part of the whole reason scrutiny is for members to have that involvement, to bring more items they want to see, and actually probably the most talked about, the most topical over the last few meetings, to be perfectly honest. So I'm really pleased to see that. And again, if you've got any items you want to bring forwards on there, please review the matrix. Again, I'm happy to help in any way I can. I'm sure Councillor Bansal will be the same, so we can speak on that at the overview group and push that forwards to be part of that. So thank you very much, Councillor Amanda, for that. Not seeing any other hands up, so I'll take that as there. So thank you. So again, go with that recommendation, the group agrees to work programme. Again, not seeing any hands against, take that as carried. Thank you very much, everyone who's been part of this evening. Thank you especially to Daryl for stepping in and into Dave's shoes and doing a great job as lead officer. And again, to Derek for stepping up and his new role. Really much appreciate the amount of work he did on the fireworks, especially behind the scenes. Really, it's very much worthwhile to bring those facts forward for everyone to look at. So thank you very much, everyone, again. I shall see you quite soon again, 7th of October. So look forward to seeing you all in there. And thank you to everyone who has watched online today. Hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Chairman.
Bye.